The following is a paid commercial program. Unless otherwise identified, the guests on the program are employees of or otherwise represent the advertiser. The opinions expressed therein are those of the advertiser and do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
And welcome to Your Life, Your Money here on Global News Radio 640 Toronto. I am Chris Creston, joined as always by Kelvin The Money Guy. Don't know who Kelvin The Money Guy is? Well, where have you been? Kelvin is one of the top financial advisors in the country, and he is a regular host here on Global News Radio 640 Toronto, and a great guy to know and a great guy to have in your corner if you need some advice with your money life, and if you need some advice with your retirement savings, you need some advice with anything to do with money. That is why the show is called Your Life, Your Money. If you want to make an appointment with Kelvin, you can always visit his website, askkelvin.ca. That's askkelvin.ca. And you can call him anytime, 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. And I've been talking about the guy. Let's bring him on. Kelvin The Money Guy. How are you doing today?
Hey, Chris. Good morning. How's everything?
Good, really good. You know, it's just making it through. I can't believe that the summer is almost over here, and we find ourselves on the precipice of an election coming up. So much to keep us all busy here in at Global News Radio, and so much to keep people sort of minds on with so much happening with a pandemic. Now we need to start thinking about an election, and you see lawn signs popping up on your neighbors' lawns, maybe on your own lawn, and you're thinking about, well, what really is the best option for me as a voter? What does the road have ahead for me as a voter? But more importantly, what does the choices that other people make, what's that going to do to affect my savings, my retirement savings, my investments, and everything? So regardless of how you decide to vote yourself, there's going to be effects to your income, to your taxation, to your investments, whether that is in real estate or the stock market. And Kelvin's going to help us navigate all of that here today as we discuss how the election is going to be affecting your pocketbook. And again, askkelvin.ca is that website, askkelvin.ca. And the phone number is 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. And, you know, elections can sort of be a period of time where things kind of go into flux. We were anticipating maybe a change in government, maybe absolutely no change, or maybe the change of the makeup of the government. And Kelvin, obviously that has people concerned about what that means for their money.
Yeah, so I thought, Chris, I'll look at some statistics. I don't have any political things, whatever. But so I thought, let me look at statistics going back to like 1922 back then to see what has happened. How does a conservative government or a liberal government affects our money? The stock markets go up and down based on a lot of things that happen in elections. Is one of those things that will tell us where we're heading and so on. Now, typically it's the conservatives and the liberals that either go back and forth, over all these years. So you would think a conservative government who generally likes lower corporate taxes and, less government intervention and, incentives for corporation and foreign investments to come in, you would think they do better. But that isn't true. They're pretty much the same. So when it comes to elections, things we have to keep in mind. So September 20th, I guess, is when we're heading to the polls to see what's going to happen. After all kinds of doubt, after all kinds of things that happens surrounding political events, economic news, corporate changes, and more, those are the things that impact our stock markets in the short term, right? So while past stock market behavior is no guarantee of future behavior, I thought I would dig into some research on previous market reactions to Canadian elections. So other than political news and social media, which, back in the 20s, in the 30s and 40s. They never had to worry about social media and
Yeah.
tweets, that kind of
Social
stuff.
media in the 20s was a guy on a soapbox on a street corner screaming out about some issue that he was concerned about, right? Nowadays,
Right.
we all have those soapboxes and we're sharing stories that may or may not be true with our
Right.
friends and family online.
Exactly. And the election in the US was a big, hint to what happens, why maybe we should listen or shouldn't listen. So the one thing I found is markets, not surprisingly, don't like uncertainty.
Hmm.
So remember with the pandemic, nobody knew when it started, nobody knew. So then it was uncertain, so the markets plunged. When they figured out some of the things, it came back up. So typically, the markets will arise during the month of the Canadian election, which actually, if you look back, if you look back, you'll see it's true. The markets are doing very well. The TSX, anyhow. So regardless of which party wins, the markets appear to react favorably to resolutions of uncertainty rather than specific party platform. So
Interesting.
also there's little variations in market performance or volatility between minority and majority government.
Really?
So yeah, that's what the studies tell us. And I guess part of it is, Canada is probably the second biggest country landmass, I guess, in the world, right?
Hmm.
I think, yeah. But we only represent 3% of world capitalization. So it tells us if we're fully invested in Canada, we're only getting 3% of our worth. 97% of, investments are outside of Canada. So I wonder if maybe that's why, it doesn't matter which government wins as far as the markets are concerned.
Right, that's possible, right? Because we find ourselves investing all over the place in different markets around the world, and that
Mm,
keeps us diversified enough that that the impact of the election isn't going to jog move the needle too much in either direction.
right. So when we look at liberals and conservatives, the stock markets will always perform better when liberals are in, they say, but it's not necessarily, it's absolutely not true, because everything is in the short. Elections are short run, like it's every 4 years, right?
Hmm.
So every 4 years, maybe the same government remains, or maybe another one changes, and the markets are just consistent. So what happens with stock markets? It all depends on for you, the investor, a diversified portfolio really helps you to cushion what may come, not just with the Canadian election, but just volatility, elsewhere in the economy and so on, right? One of the things that they looked at was, every time there's an election, it's always Quebec want to separate, leave, all that kind of stuff, right? So what they found was political risk associated with a possible independent Quebec didn't have any real volatility with the markets. It really didn't matter. I guess what happened was, when you look at companies, they're so global and they're so
Hmm.
international, that just because they're in Quebec or Ontario, BC, wherever they are, the mothership isn't outside of Canada. So I think that's what happened. So, experts always say that a well-diversified asset allocation portfolio can help you weather volatility, whether it be it political uncertainty or market factors. So again, when you look at your money, look at the inside. I always say, look at the inside of the guts of your portfolio, and that'll tell the tale of what your return and volatility is going to look like. So the bottom line is that in Canada, political party in power has very little influence over the stock markets. So when people invest their money, they should maintain like a high view, long-term success plan for their money, to determine where they're going to be, and that'll take away volatility from us.
Right. When facing the potential of things changing and the volatility that could affect the market, we find that if we are invested in a diverse portfolio, we're going to weather any sort of storm
Right.
that could potentially come up with the uncertainty involving an election that's coming up, or a minority government that could potentially fall. Business and investments and stock
Right.
markets sort of chug along because they need to, because they're well managed by a lot of people who are managing our money, people like Kelvin the Money Guy, who can help you diversify your portfolio to make sure that you can adjust and make sure that you are in it for the long haul, and in it for your retirement savings, and in it for making money regardless of who's in power.
Well, that's why I think, people need to get an independent financial advisor, because we help you to remain disciplined, right? We help you to follow a mechanical, emotionless set of rules. Take your emotions away for it, and dictate when to buy and sell fundamentally sound dividend growth companies. And I think if you do that successfully over a period of time, you will win the game, no matter what happens politically or economically, or whatever happens. You've always got to change. You've always got to, we don't like to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
But every so often, we need to sit down with our advisor and look at what we have and make some common sense changes to what we do, and we'll be fine. So, like I said at the beginning of the show, a minority or a majority government really has no bearings when we look at studies shows on the stock market. So it'd be interesting to see, when we go. So maybe after the break, we'll talk about why does the market react so quickly and why it forgets so quickly.
That's coming up on Your Life, Your Money, here with Kelvin the Money Guy. You can visit his website, askkelvin.ca. That's askkelvin.ca. And don't forget, you can call him anytime, 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. More of Kelvin the Money Guy talking the election, talking about how the election could affect your money, coming up here on Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
You are listening to a paid commercial program. Unless otherwise identified, the guests on the program are employees of or otherwise represent the advertiser. The opinions expressed therein are those of the advertiser and do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
And welcome back to Your Life, Your Money here on Global News Radio 640 Toronto. Your Life, Your Money with Kelvin the Money Guy. Askkelvin.ca is the website. That's askkelvin.ca. And you can call him anytime, 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. And that's his cell phone number. So you can give him a ring anytime. When I say anytime, I mean, come on, be reasonable. The guy's got a family. You don't want to wake him up in the middle of the night. And if you don't want to bug him on the phone, askkelvin.ca is a great tool as well. Visit his website, listen to past shows, find more tools, but also you can book appointments with him there, askkelvin.ca. And it's important to have an independent financial advisor on your side, someone that can help you weather the storm, someone that can look at your money objectively and not with all the emotions that you're obviously and understandably going to have when you're talking about your retirement, your family, and everything that money represents, your hard work, the fruit of your labor, and the retirement that you hope to have one day. It can get emotional. It can get scary. You've got a lot tied up in that investment, and you want to make sure you do it right. Not to mention your political leaning. You don't want, obviously someone who is planning to vote Liberal, if there's a conservative government, they might make drastic changes to their investments based on no facts at all, but based only on emotion, and vice versa. We know that would happen the other way around as well. So that's, again, another reason to have an independent financial advisor on your side. And that's why Kelvin today is talking about your money and the election. It's to make sure that you keep a steady head in all of this. And last segment, we were just talking, Kelvin, about how really going back in time and statistics, we're not being political here. This is the numbers tell us that really it doesn't matter which party is in power. as long as you keep a steady head in your
Right.
investments, things are going to go well.
Yeah, it's like the election in the US. They said if Biden won, the global markets will do better, and if Trump won, the US markets will do better. And it's true. I mean, they're a big, huge economy, so whatever happens there really dictates what happens to the rest of us. And like I said, Canada represents 3% of the world market capitalization. So at the end of the day, I don't want to say it doesn't matter because we live in the best country in the world as far as I'm concerned. But when it comes to money, it takes the back seat, So when we look at the markets, what happens? The markets is quick to react, but it's also quick to forget. And what I mean by that is if you can think back to the US election when Trump was running, right? When he was leading.
Do I have to?
No, you don't have to, but I just want to use to tell you. So when he was the leading candidate until the end of that summer, right?
Yeah.
He had tweeted, or he had over 14,000 tweets. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Right? And depending on what he posted, it shifted the markets up or down. And one great example was, and you probably don't remember, was in August last year when the markets plunged because what he said he was going to do was implement hefty tariffs on China, like on imports from China and tariffs. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And the markets, man, just took a nosedive, right? But after all the aftermath of all that kind of stuff, guess what happened? The markets came back with a vengeance and we were fine. So just as quick it is to go down, just as quick to come back. So what does all that mean to you and your portfolio? Right? Like, what is all this volatility, tweeting and social media and stuff? How does that affect our money? So if you've determined a strategic long-term, asset allocation for yourself, so match your investments with your risk tolerance. So if you feel comfortable riding out short-term volatility bumps in the markets, just align your risk with your investments. And if you do so, you'll be fine. There's no need taking all kinds of risk and so on to make money. In fact, studies show the less risk you take in the long run, the better your return. So, like I always say, it's always the opposite of our thinking when it comes to money. It's really weird when you're investing money. And the one thing we say is keep your emotions away, right? When it comes to money, while we all tend to be emotional about our money, we're far better off when we approach long-term investment strategy with a cool and rational perspective. And that's why people need a financial advisor, because letting emotions influence our investment decisions can also lead us astray and can result in decisions that we regret for the long term. And I can remember in 2008, 2009 with the financial crisis, there was a number of clients that wanted to sell, and some did sell, no matter what we said to them. And guess what happened? Some still haven't recovered. Now, the pandemic in March, when the markets plunged, pretty much, I can say for me, none of my clients sold. They stayed the course. And when we look back now, almost 2 years later, guess what? It really didn't matter, right? So what I'm trying to say is, the markets are quick to react, but also quick enough to forget. So keep that in mind when you invest your money in what you do. Don't get caught up in this excitement of the election. I mean, get caught up because of who you want to vote for and what you want to do, but don't let it influence your money too much. Because like we said in the beginning, a minority or a majority government doesn't really have too much bearings. Neither does a liberal or conservative government influence our money either.
I find that all very interesting, but I guess when it all works out in the wash, when you're dealing with people's investments and you're dealing with people who are in it for the long haul, right? Like you said, if you were to pull out your money and panic in March, then you may not recover like some of those people back in 2008, 2009. Meanwhile, If you waited a few months, you find that things came back and things are chugging along the way that they would have otherwise. And it's like, pandemic what? So if you can see that the markets can survive a pandemic and all of the economic upheaval connected to that, then an election seems like small fries. An election in a country like Canada, where the parties are not going to sway drastically in one direction or another.
And you know, with the pandemic, with all the money and stimulus and stuff that they've given out, which they had to, I think, just to keep people afloat. You know, we know, like we talked about last time, we know inflation is going to be a factor coming in the future. And we know interest rates, no matter which government wins, right? Whatever party wins, rates will have to go up. So, and like we said last time, that kind of signals as rates go up, it gets volatile, but then after it continues and the market surge. So with stock markets, you know, continuing this is one of the longest bull market in history. So it'll continue, but there'll be some whipsaw movements along the way. So you can't get caught up in the excitement of elections and so on.
Right. And I think so many people do, especially people who are listening, who you may be someone who's politically active, and you may be paying attention to all of the movement of the polls and then reacting accordingly, you know, worried that this candidate doesn't take the economy seriously. This candidate is focused too much on certain aspects of the economy. And in the meantime, you're messing around. They're moving your chess pieces for you, when what you should be doing is making sure that you've got someone with a steady head on your side, helping you make those chess moves yourself. And you know, when it comes down to it, let those guys in Ottawa mess around and do whatever it is that they do, and you stay inside your own pocketbook and help get the right help and the right advice that you need to make sure that regardless of the games that they're playing, you come out on the winning side.
Right. And like I say, just use some common sense and look at your portfolio. Make sure you're very diversified. If you have good asset allocation in every sector. And one thing, you know, is I always say keep a third of your money in Canada, keep a third in US, and a third in global. And then sit back and see which governments are favorable to US and Canada and whatever, and then maybe tweak your portfolio to take advantage of that and move on. We can't control things like interest rates and policies and things like that, right? I mean, they do. But we can see what they've done and adjust our portfolios to take advantage. Remember, in the stock markets, for every seller, there's a buyer.
Right.
For every buyer, there's a seller. So once you know that in mind, you know, when people are selling, you buy. When people are buying, you sell. And in the long run, you'll win. So a lot of good things. This decade will hold a lot of good things for us for the stock markets, for what I see, for our money anyways. And if you're a little bit, you know, use some common sense about it, and you'll be fine. And the one thing is keep emotions away from your money.
Right.
And you'll be good.
That's obviously a big piece of advice, to keep emotions away from your money, and easier said than done for people who are managing their own accounts. And that's why it's important to have an independent financial advisor. And that's why it's important to have a guy like Kelvin in your corner. If you've got an advisor and you want a second opinion, if you've been doing it and going it alone, and you want someone on your side who can help you navigate some uncertainty, especially around the election, visit askkelvin.ca. That's askkelvin.ca. And you can book an appointment with them. You can listen to past shows. You can listen to our past show on inflation as well, which I think is an important one moving forward as we navigate the next few months, years here in this economy. And you can call Kelvin anytime at 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. Now, Kelvin, obviously, when we were talking about, that doesn't matter whether it's a conservative or a liberal government in the past, the stock market does what the stock market's going to do. We're not telling people not to vote. We're not telling people not to care, right? Yeah. We're telling people that vote the way that you want to vote and make the choices that you want to make, but don't allow those choices to cloud your investments and your future when it comes to your money, because there's a lot tied up in there that's going to be apolitical, and a lot tied up in there that's going to be okay regardless of
Right.
who's elected.
Yeah, yeah. And we've been through this many times, and
Hmm.
we survive. The markets do well, and the markets always head higher, no matter what happens. So we have to look at 5 years down the road and say, okay, what's the next 5 years going to look like in my life? Am I going to retire? Am I close to retirement? What is going to happen in my life? And make those kind of judgments. Remember, there's no shortage of tales of overnight successes. As we hear about hot investments, right? They're skyrocketing. We hear about, um, stocks that we should buy, and we jump on the bandwagon and we go, wow, like when think back to the last 6 months about cryptocurrency and all that kind of stuff, right?
GameStop was supposed to make a lot of
Actually,
people
yeah,
rich. Yeah.
yeah, all the cannabis stuff,
Yeah.
all that things, and we jump on the bandwagon, and that's what happens. So, don't get caught up in the panic mode and maybe selling prematurely when the markets turn. Investments is a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster ride of emotions. And I think the one biggest thing why I see when I talk to clients and so on, why they use a financial advisor, is because we take away the emotions with your money. And we kind of guide you through all the ups and downs of what's going on in the political world and in the in the real world of money and corporate world. So maybe after the break, we'll touch on why you should keep your emotions in check during all these polls and so on.
Terrific. That's coming up here on Your Life, Your Money with Kelvin, the Money Guy. Don't forget his website is askkelvin.ca. That's askkelvin.ca. And give him a call, 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. A whole lot more of Your Life, Your Money continuing here on Global News Radio, 640 Toronto.
You are listening to a paid commercial program. Unless otherwise identified, the guests on the program are employees of or otherwise represent the advertiser. The opinions expressed therein are those of the advertiser and do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
Welcome back to Your Life, Your Money here on Global News Radio 640 Toronto. This is the show where we talk about your life and your money. That's why the show is called that. And it's the intersection between those two things that makes everything interesting. When you've saved up money for your retirement, or maybe even for something smaller, something you're going to buy a boat, you're going to go on vacation, you're going to buy a TV, whatever it is for everyone, whatever amount of money, it might be a new air conditioner. There are so many things that could change your life, and it all relates to your money. And whether it's something really, really big or something really, really small, it matters to you and to your life. And that's where we try to find those intersections and really sort of bring home exactly how you best should manage those things. And always the best way to manage those investments is with an independent financial advisor, a guy like Kelvin, the Money Guy. You can visit his website, askkelvin.ca. That's askkelvin.ca. And you can call him 416-457-7526. That's his cell phone number, 416-457-PLAN, because you should have one. And having a good plan will help you navigate a lot of uncertainty in the markets, and a lot of uncertainty in your life, and a lot of uncertainty when you're thinking about something like an election, which we are in the middle of. Oh yeah, that thing. Oh, that's why my neighbor's got a different colored bunch of different colored signs on their lawns. I thought they were decorating early for Halloween. No, those names may be scary, but they are not Halloween decorations. They're there for the election, and that's something that could cause some uncertainty in your mind and in your heart as you're thinking about, well, what happens if there's a liberal majority or conservatives get elected? How's that going to change my pocketbooks? And we were talking earlier in the show, not that much. And especially when it comes to the stock market and to your investments, as long as you look ahead, keep a steady head, and have an objective frame of mind when it comes to your money. And that's why, again, it's important to have a guy like Kelvin on your side. Askkelvin.ca is his website. That's askkelvin.ca. 416 888-457-7526. Now, Kelvin, as we're talking about that, staying objective, it's not always easy to keep your emotions in check when we're facing an election and we're facing, conflicting visions of the future and people making decisions that will affect our lives.
Yeah. So, the thing is, how do we keep our emotions about our investment decisions intact, right? And I must say, financial advisors, people think all we do is look at the markets and think about your money. Yes, that's a big part of it. But the other side of the coin is we're really a money coach. So, for example, if your, car insurance comes due, you call and say, "This is my car. I'll put you in touch with someone. Maybe they can save you money." Your mortgage comes. Whatever you do with money, you pick up the phone and you call your advisor and tell them this is what you're thinking. And they should be able to kind of give you a roadmap on where you want to go. So it's not just about, emotions about money and so on. It's emotions about a lot of things that you may want to do with your money. So I guess people should think of us as more of a money coach than anything else. One of the biggest thing I find is, and we talk about this actually every show. And on every financial planning show I listen to, they talk about this. But sometimes we don't do it. Get a plan, but more importantly, stick to it.
Right.
Whatever that plan is, you put it in place, you put your plan in place for a reason. So it should be your guiding light to help you reach your long and short-term goals. I always say have long-term goals, but also have short-term ones, because if you can accomplish the short-term goals, you're certainly going to accomplish those long-term ones, right? So these things can be really useful when the markets take a turn for the worse. Don't abandon your plan just because the markets took a turn. Fluctuations in the stock markets it has to happen. It's part of the mechanics of the stock markets. It can't just go up and up and up. It's got to go back and forth and back and forth. And really, when you think about it, you really make money when the markets go backwards, because eventually it's going to go forward. It's like buying, they say, tomatoes in the summer. I've got tons of tomatoes in my backyard. So I'm always going to freeze it all so we'll have to buy a bunch when it goes in the winter. So think of it, it's simple, but think of it that way. So assuming your investment strategy is right for you, you should be able to rest easier as the markets run their course during turbulent times. So the thing with a plan, we always talk about a plan. But I think the most important thing is to stick to that plan. Don't, vary all over the place, right? Because you'll never accomplish what you want to accomplish. So that's why I say keep your emotions away. Have a sound financial plan for yourself about everything that you actually, not just about money, about everything in your life, and stick to it, and you'll be fine, right? So that's one of the things that I found about after all these years of doing what I do and talking to people about money and so on. Those are the kind of things that I observe, is that we have plans, but sometimes we don't stick to it, right? The second thing is, look at how often we're looking. So what I mean by that is I have clients that look at their money every day, right? And it'll drive you nuts, because one day the markets are up, one day the markets are down. You have no idea what's going on. So find out for yourself, do like a portfolio monitoring as a key part of your investments in order to keep up with what you're doing. But you have to pick and choose what your looking looks like. I find if you look at it every day, man, you're going to go crazy.
And I think that's true of so many things in our lives. We have access to all sorts of information on our health and our money and our schedules and everything right at our fingertips, in our phones, online. And we can micromanage these things and look at them so closely that we can't see the forest for the trees, right?
Yeah.
So you see the sudden up or the sudden down in your investments, and if you keep panning out and panning out and panning out. And you think, well, if I panicked on Tuesday, but if I only looked on Thursday, it would have looked like a flat line, right?
Yeah.
And
So yeah. So I would say pick your monitoring schedule.
mm-hmm.
And for me, I say every quarter. As the weather changes,
Mm-hmm.
spring, summer, whatever, maybe that's when you look at your investments. Don't look at it every day, man. It's gonna drive you. Remember, nothing in life is as important as you think it is while you're thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that for a second. So don't keep looking at your investments every day and bugging your advisor and stuff like that. Sit back, go enjoy your life. My gosh, you only live once. The markets are going to go up and down regardless of what you do. So maybe after the break, we'll kind of talk about the last one and move on.
Perfect. Talking about some of Kelvin's tips when it comes to navigating your money through the election period here that we find ourselves in. And don't forget, you can always visit his website to book an appointment to meet with Kelvin, askkelvin.ca. That's askkelvin.ca. And he's got a phone number. Funny. He's got a cell phone number, 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. And that's what we've been talking about, having a plan and sticking with it. More of Your Life, Your Money with Kelvin the Money Guy coming up on the other side of the break here on Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
You are listening to a paid commercial program. Unless otherwise identified, the guests on the program are employees of or otherwise represent the advertiser. The opinions expressed therein are those of the advertiser and do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
Welcome back. Still time left here on Your Life, Your Money here on Global News Radio 640 Toronto. I am Chris Creston, joined as always by Kelvin the Money Guy. askkelvin.ca is his website. That's askkelvin.ca. And his phone number is 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. And we've been talking this hour about the election, as so many people are, and talking about how the election and the election period could affect your money. And a lot of tips coming from Kelvin here, talking about keeping a steady head, talking about making sure that you are navigating this period without involving your emotions. And a great way to do that is to have an independent financial advisor on your side. A guy like Kelvin the Money Guy. askkelvin.ca, 416-457-7526. Kelvin, I know you've got another point on this that you'd like to make before the hour is up, so I will I'll quiet down and I'll let you talk.
Yeah, what I find is, there's a theory out there. It's called loss aversion. And we know losing hurts, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like it's an obvious statement. Nobody gets to lose. But the theory of loss aversion says that, losses hurt far more than the enjoyment we get from when gains are equal value.
Wow.
So that may help you from keeping a knee-jerk reaction when checking into volatility of the stock markets. So really think about those three things. You want to have a plan, but more importantly, stick to it. Look how often you're looking at your money, because looking at it too many times can cause anxieties. And losing hurts. So what you want to do is keep those thoughts in mind. In short, doing this research about knowing yourself and how much risks you're comfortable with, sticking to that plan you've come up with, and keep your emotions from overpowering your logical thoughts. And I think if we do that successfully during elections and after elections, we'll fare very well, and we'll take away a lot of risk from ourselves, and a lot of emotions from ourselves, and we'll do wonderful, I think.
Yeah, and the politicians running the election, they're making promises, they're making proclamations, they're going to change the way that the government runs. But ultimately, we know that for ourselves, we got to look out for number one. We've got to look out for our own family, and we've got to find a way to make sure that we're not overreacting to those things that they are proclaiming and promising.
And remember, the bottom line is that in Canada, the political party in power has very little influence over the stock markets. So as far as retirement planning and, paying off mortgages and car loans and all that kind of stuff, sit down and have a thought process to it, and be logical about it, and you'll be fine, regardless of which party you may win. And those are statistics that tell us that, not me. That's just statistics from the last, since 1920s, actually.
And that's the thing, on a long enough timeline, like looking at your investments and looking at your markets, you can see a less drastic line than on the graph when you zoom all the way in.
Mm-hmm. Actually, one thing I was told by my technology people is that they added something to my website. So if people want to ask me a question or book a phone meeting, they can go on and my schedule is up. I don't know what they did, but you can click on a button and you can make an appointment or something. I think so we're trying to make it easier for people to kind of get in touch.
That's perfect, and that's always a great tool. And to be able to visit his website, visit Kelvin's website, and get in touch with him, not only to ask him a question, but to book an appointment right there on the website is a terrific asset to be able to have, and just pick his brain, get in his head and talk about what you need to do with your money life, and whether you've got a financial advisor and you need a second opinion, or whether you've been going it alone and you need someone there on your side to say, well, the stuff that I've been doing sort of makes sense for me, but I feel like I'm being a little too volatile. I feel like I might be a little too in the weeds on this. And I think that's something we're all guilty of, is not being able to see the forest for the trees when it comes to our investments, our favorite sports teams, politics, all of that stuff. Askkelvin.ca is the website where you can book an appointment to talk with Kelvin, to meet with him and talk about your money life. askkelvin.ca. So, Kelvin, we've been talking about the election, and I know a lot of people have a lot of emotions tied up in it, and they're really worried about what it could bring and what it could change and how it's going to manipulate their money life. But, there's some closing thoughts that you have as we say goodbye to the audience here for another show, and reassure them about where their money is right now in the election period.
So statistics tell us that, the market volatility, it really doesn't matter if it's a minority or majority government. What I think we need to do is determine a strategic, long-term asset allocation that matches our risk tolerance. And you'll feel very comfortable writing out short-term volatility bumps along the way. So again, match your risk tolerance to your investments. And no matter what happens, elections or whatever, you'll be fine. And keep your emotions intact. That's all I can say.
If you're looking for someone to help you keep those emotions intact, someone to check your emotions against the reality of the stock market, call Kelvin, 416-457-7526. That's 416-457-PLAN. And visit his website, askkelvin.ca. That's askkelvin.ca. Listen to past shows, book an appointment, get inside Kelvin's head at askkelvin.ca and get him on your side. He's a good guy to know. He's one of the top financial advisors in the country. askkelvin.ca, 416-457-PLAN. Stay tuned to Global News Radio, 640 Toronto.
The preceding was a paid commercial program. Unless otherwise identified, the guests on the program are employees of or otherwise represent the advertiser. The opinions expressed therein are those of the advertiser and do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of Global News Radio 640 Toronto.